Hallmarkies podcast, and we are here for our When Calls the Hallmarkies podcast. We're talking When Calls the Heart, and I'm Rachel, and Amber is here.
Hi, everybody.
And Ruth Hill is also here with us.
Hey, nice to see everybody again.
Here we go. Yeah, so this is our second episode of this series. You want to make sure that you check out last week's episode where we talked about the premiere. Dive right in and talk about the latest episode, episode 2, season 5, Hearts and Minds. And so, Amber, what was your overall reaction to this episode?
I was like fine with it, and then they showed me the newspaper, and I got really mad real fast. I went from like 3 to a 15. But we'll go into that, and it's not really like, I mean, I guess it is show related, but it's not like because of anything the characters are doing. Yeah. But we'll talk about it.
We will.
It's a big hot topic for me.
Yeah.
Ruth, what about you? What do you think of this one?
For me, I saw this as I had no problem with the episode. I personally thought of it more as a filler episode because we know that, I mean, everybody already knew when Jack was supposed to come back. And it's just, in some ways, because you already knew that and all the word had gotten out and everybody's talking about that, I felt like, in some ways, yeah, the episode was fine, but I felt like they were filling time on some of the parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so for me as well. I'm basically on the same page as you, Ruth. It was kind of a forgettable episode, and what really surprised me so much is so many of the plot lines of the, I think what made it feel extra filler was that so many of the plot lines from the premiere were kind of dropped. You don't see Gowan in this episode at all. You don't see Jesse at all. You don't see Clara at all. And
I mean, you do see Clara, but she doesn't do anything other than sell a dress. But
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so there's nothing about that storyline, though, that they started. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of weird to me that I feel like this is an episode you could have had at almost any point in the season.
Yeah. In some ways, I wish that they had not told us when Jack was coming back.
Yeah, I agree.
I really think that I understand why they did it, but knowing that going into this episode, just for me, made it like, well, it seemed kind of ridiculous for, well, nothing's going to happen to Jack because he's coming back next week. And so I wish they hadn't told us.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. So we start out with Julie learning to be a teacher, and she's trying to teach the kids how to draw. And I did think I had a pretty good joke on my Twitter when she's doing that big circle drawing. And I said, I didn't know they had win, lose, or draw in Hope Valley. I was like, I want Julie and Rosemary to be on my team.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was pretty proud of that one. That was good. But anyway, she's trying to teach them how to draw. And Elizabeth kind of gives her this lesson about how she has to give this girl a B when she wanted to give her an A because she didn't follow the instructions given and include a person in the drawing. Amber, what do you think of this?
Well, first of all, I was like, a B-? That's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, they're children. Give her like an A-, because she did 95% of the assignment. The assignment was do a landscape with a person. If she had just done like a little stick figure, would she have gotten an A?
I guess so. Yeah, that was the impression I got.
Anyway, but I mean, I understand, like, we're teaching them to follow rules and things, but also a B-? That's a big deduction in the grade. Also, it's so funny, when I was watching it and Julie wrote her A like that on that first paper, I was so confused, like, why would anyone write their A like that? And then I realized it was setting it up so she could just quickly change it into a B.
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that she was like grading them in crayon. I mean, what was she using? Like, what was that utensil that she was using to write with?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think they had like A's and B's back then, but that,
right.
But that's okay. This is not a historically accurate show, but obviously this was supposed to show that Elizabeth was teaching her about being a tough teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I also want to be like, Elizabeth, you've never been tough with any of your students.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, that plot line, I mean, not that I didn't like it, but coming from a teacher's perspective, it are we bringing up the part
The whole thing.
Yeah, we should just say spoiler. This is a spoiler podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Sorry.
the thing about where Robert wanted to see the paper and then he tore it in half. And,
Yeah.
Okay, that particular thing and the way, personally, for me, Elizabeth made way too much of that. Now, I understand the parents might be upset and you have to work through that, but I've been a teacher. I mean, I actually still do go into the classroom. And if that happened in the classroom, I'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." You know, we'd see if we could repair it. But it seemed a little bit much. I thought that the girl would actually go home at lunchtime over something like that. And then Elizabeth saying, "Well, you shouldn't have just." I actually thought, "Oh, Julie, you handled that really well." And then Elizabeth comes back and says, "No, you didn't handle it well." And I'm thinking, okay, I've been a teacher and I would have handled it similarly to that. And I've never really had a problem because it wasn't like somebody, the paper got ruined. Do you know how many times papers get ruined in a classroom?
Yeah.
And it was like, I thought Robert had apologized. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I.
Oh my gosh, he did. Like, it was so crazy. Okay. This was driving me crazy. So he accidentally rips it and he's like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." And he emphasis on the accidentally rips it.
Yeah.
And the girl's upset. Fine. Whatever. Yeah. They handle it. It's okay. Yeah. And then Elizabeth comes and is like, "You should have made Robert apologize, blah, 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 blah." Okay. And then, like, he did apologize. And then,
that's what I thought, yes.
And then, in front of Elizabeth and Julie, Robert's like, to the girl again. He's like, "I'm so sorry." And then after that, Elizabeth is like, "You need to make sure that Robert apologizes." I was like, how many times does he have to apologize?
I did think that was just a little bit of an overkill because I don't know. I realized, I mean, it's not like this girl is a kindergartner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, where when you're in and I understand those things happen, but it wasn't like he came out of nowhere and like tore the paper in half and threw it in a big wad and threw it across the classroom.
And say, "You're terrible at art. Go home."
Right. And I know sometimes what happens is then parents make too much of it. I know that does happen, but then you just smooth it over and then I couldn't understand why, okay, if Julie's the one at fault and Elizabeth wanted to make a big deal of this, then she should have brought Julie in and said, "Okay, now you need to talk to the parent and say what happened." But we never saw that. It was Elizabeth talking to the parent. Julie, I don't think, was ever brought in to talk to the parent. She should have been. She should, if the parent was that upset, and she could have addressed it. And I would think that if I had been the mother, it would have been like, "Oh, my daughter just made too much of it. It's okay."
Yeah. Well, it's I know I'm gonna get.
Oh yeah, I probably will too. I know
people are gonna be like, "You're a hater. Go back to Coal Valley," because it's not Coal Valley anymore.
Right.
Right. But I was so irritated with Elizabeth this whole episode with teaching Julie how to be a teacher.
Yes.
Because personally, I feel like all the time that Elizabeth is too involved in her students' lives. Like, sometimes it really is none of your business what, a family decides to do on their own personal family time, unless it's like endangering the child, but like, whatever, yada, yada. We understand. And then also, like, when she's in school, like, she totally has favorites and she completely mollycoddles the kids.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, and it's her class in the end. Like, she can't blame on Julie. And kind of bummed out that they closed this sort of portion of the story of Julie and Elizabeth so soon, because I feel like it had so much potential to make Elizabeth a more interesting character, because Julie was kind of teaching her different ways, and like Julie was way more fun than Elizabeth for sure.
Yeah.
Those kids were probably devastated to lose Julie because she's like playing games with them and like drawing and super fun. And so I don't know. I was kind of bummed that all got kind of wrapped up this episode.
I know. And speaking, and I was also thinking, speaking practically, I think it's great if Julie wants to go off and be an artist. I think you should. That's fantastic. But I'm thinking of, okay, in my position, I'm trying to be a writer, but I'm actually still a teacher so I can support myself.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. She's not just going to all of a sudden be able to go off. I guess unless her parents, just give her a whole lump of money where she can go off and do it. But I don't think but I think Julie doesn't want that. I think Julie wants to be independent of her parents. I think that's why she came out west. And so it would make sense, have her stay in the classroom. I mean, I'm hoping that she comes back and they at least let her stay in the classroom, because it would make sense. Let her stay and do some teaching. Just give her the art segment. Have her teach art. Have her play with the kids. And then she could pursue the art stuff kind of she could kind of do part-time teaching, part-time pursuing the art stuff. And I think that's good.
Agreed.
I think that'd be really good for her. And I think it'd be good for Elizabeth too.
And I think it would be good for the kids, back to the Robert and I don't remember the girl's name situation.
Right.
Because by not making a huge deal out of it, she was able to get the children to solve it for themselves.
Right.
Which is way better than having someone just intervene for you.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, there's two other kind of big plot lines in this episode. The first one is this guy from the railroad comes in and he says there's no station in Hope Valley. And everyone is very mad at Abigail for letting this happen.
Right.
Even though, what is she supposed to do? And so this poor guy, I felt really bad for him. Like, I mean, and they even outed he's like an orphan. I mean, this guy is really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. What do you think of this whole plot line?
Ruth. Let's go to Ruth.
Oh, okay.
First.
Okay. Well, first of all, when that particular character, Mr. Weston, isn't that that was the character's name, wasn't it? From the railroad? Mr. Weston, I think was his name.
I believe that's correct.
That's true. So he came on the screen and I was like, I know that guy. Who is that guy? Because part of it is I wasn't used to seeing him in period dress and all that. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there and thinking, and all of a sudden it dawned on me who it was, but I didn't want to say it until I looked it up to be sure, because of course it wasn't on IMDb. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to see if other people think that it's who I think it is. And so it was Cameron Bancroft, who is from Cedar Cove.
Yeah.
Cedar Cove people are going to recognize him as Olivia's brother. And then also he was in the first Wedding March. In fact, you're
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that great scene where I believe Jack Wagner's character knocks him out, if I remember right.
He plays Olivia's boyfriend. Yeah.
Right.
Beyonce.
And so for me, because I've interviewed that actor, and we have this connection. In fact, I sent him a message after the show and said it was so nice to see you, because I'm a fan of his, and I know that his part wasn't major. I realize that, but it was an important part to the show. I mean, for that particular plot line, and it was so nice to see him. And so I sent him this message, and he's always glad to hear from me. So that was nice. And so for me, that was actually one of the highlights of the episode, was having him and watching him and Jack Wagner's character, watching him and Bill, that whole exchange that was going on between them. I liked that. You
thought that was funny?
I thought it was.
I'm just super mad at Bill Avery all the time. So I just don't understand. I cannot reconcile how people are like, Bill Avery is one of the good guys, because he all the time is just breaking rules, using his position of power and abusing it and imposing his will on other people and going full vigilante. And I mean, am I the only person who remembers that he lied to Abigail about not being married? Why is he considered a good guy and Henry Gowan is a terrible man? I just don't understand And so when he like literally pulled a nuns from Sound of Music and stole the part from that guy's car, and then he was like, well, you're gonna have to be in jail for parking on the road for 24 hours, which is a totally made up rule that I just made up, and I'm gonna put you in jail. And like, what? Where is this? I was like, I didn't think it was funny. I was like, he should be in jail.
I felt bad for this poor man. I just was like, they need to like send Opal in and give him a hug or something. It was bad.
Everyone needs an Opal hug.
I know. I think what's frustrating about these kinds of plots on the show is that they don't allow Abigail to grow at all. I mean, she's just perfect. She solves everything. Like, why not have this kind of stew for a couple of episodes where she can't figure it out? She doesn't know the solution, and she can't make everything right by, like, using her children to emotionally manipulate people. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the character could be so much more interesting. And I think Lori Loughlin is up for the challenge, but I really, really wish they hadn't made her mayor. I just think I think she was way more interesting when she was just like a cafe owner and than as a mayor. And I don't know. She's just like perfect all the time.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
You don't mind that?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I think the idea is they want one character in the show to be the one that works there, that's like basically saves everyone and does everything right. And I think they also want to be very, very forward thinking and having women in places of power like that. I know technically I don't think that you would have ever had a mayor like that. I realize we're not historically accurate, but I think it does. I personally, I think it'd be more fun if someone else was mayor, like if Lee was mayor or something like that. It might be
way better because you already have the moral center in Elizabeth.
Yeah,
and so you don't need Elizabeth and Abigail to both be perfect. Like, every show kind of has their sort of moral center that the rest of them kind of, you have your Ted Mosbys that everyone's kind of surrounding around. But for this, like, I don't know, we already have it. We don't need it.
Yeah, so I agree that it's just, there are no stakes at all in this show because every episode, Abigail or Elizabeth will meddle and solve the problem. And it got even grander and worse when Abigail became mayor because she's not just solving like individuals' problems. She like can just magically solve every problem that happens to the town. Like if there was a budget crisis, I'm pretty sure she would like magically find money. By like sending her kid's postcard to someone and being like, my child is so sweet. And it like you said, I think Lori Loughlin is better than that because she could add some nuance to that character. And also, I think it makes Abigail irritating to me because I just can't believe that there is a person like that who is always right. And even if like it doesn't make logical sense for things to go her way, they go her way. I mean, I just don't believe that the railroad would build the thing. Plus, it made me super irritated where they're like, oh, but our town won't grow and our kids want to live here and be happy and all that stuff. And they're literally taking a depot away from another town as well. So all of those arguments I'm sure could be made for Jameson or whatever. So it's just we're picking favorites, which is fine. But
well, yes.
like when you make it like, oh, but we want to build and be a happy community, that I feel like that's neutral. So where's the other benefit?
Yeah, and I don't believe that Leland would really do what he did. Like, I think that the railroad would like call his bluff, be like, yeah, right. Like you're going to really give up using you're really going to go back to horse and buggy and risk the success of the mill? It seemed like quite the claim. But anyway, it's supposed to just make you feel all good and positive because Cody saved the day. And so maybe we're just bitter and mean. I don't know. Maybe we
Well,
just, I don't know.
well, I think also it was, now do remember there was a contract. It's, I think contractually they were supposed to, at least that was
Yeah,
my
that's true.
understanding.
I mean,
Is, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say about the contract. Like, they had a contract with Jeremy Gilbaugh, okay? Like, Gilbo.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that any court of law would be like, this guy is literally like a embezzler and attempted murderer. I don't think his word is very good.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys in the show.
Yeah.
And I think that might be part of what we're sensing. It's like, where's the
Conflict.
at least we could always count on Gowan, that you knew that there was always going to be something. He'd mix things up, and and even there was a time that Dottie mixed things up a bit.
Yeah.
I know that there was a lot more conflict. I mean, I liked it when Bill's ex-wife was in it. I really do miss her.
Yeah.
I liked that conflict, and I felt like that was never resolved. I mean, I know that's probably,
Yeah.
but I think that could be part of what we're missing. There was really no major conflict that in this particular episode.
Yeah. And Rachel and I were talking about this just as the show in general. I feel like almost all of the conflict in the show is an external conflict, except for with Henry, because he's the only one who like has demons and struggles with them. Everyone else is just perfect. So it's kind of hard to feel invested in any of the conflicts or problems, because it's either like, oh, there's going to be a flood and we have to get people. So it's all basically always a physical action that needs to happen, or someone just needs to make a physical decision and fix it.
Yeah, I like that.
And it doesn't really allow the characters to explore themselves and grow from those experiences.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was bummed to see Julie kind of to lose that, because I thought that was an interesting dynamic of her being like, well, wait a minute here, why are you doing it this way, and making Elizabeth kind of grow and realize that she was wrong and judged her sister and all that. But yeah, I think that is a very valid point. I agree with you. It's things like needing to build the baby crib. It's like this. It's not really a conflict. It's just like a project that they're working on.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing, or a person that they need to make happy.
It's kind of like when I'm watching the show, I sort of feel like all the characters are just like playing Sims, and they just need to do like this many things so they can build a train depot, and then they need to do like this many things so that they can then build a hotel or something like that. I don't know.
Agreed.
What do you think, Ruth? Do you feel like we're off base?
Are we too hard on it?
You both are probably harder on the show than I would be, but that's because I guess I've seen shows enough. I mean, I'm thinking back to other Hallmark shows, especially. I mean, for me, when I know that it's easy to make the connection. Okay, when we watch network shows, we see a lot of this and that and the other thing. But I'm thinking about other Hallmark shows, because I've watched, of course, all the Hallmark shows, and so I guess that's why the way that I saw the episode was, like I said at the beginning, it was a filler episode. I'm expecting more from the rest of the shows.
Yeah.
Maybe my expectations will be too high, but I'm looking at this episode. They've had other episodes in other Hallmark shows, especially, where once in a while they throw in what I would call a filler show.
Sure.
There's a lot of fluff, and network shows do it too.
Sure.
Once in a while, you're watching a network show, and there'll be a show that's thrown in, and you think, where did that come from? Why did they even write that? That was like, okay, and then the next show, they hit things really hard.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is that maybe, and of course we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I do know that a lot of the people, I mean, I know Paul Green was filming something, Andrea Brooks was filming something.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to assume that I just lost his name. The Gowan
Was
what's his
filming
name?
Martin.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Martin Cummins. Yeah, I'm assuming that he was probably filming because I know that when he was at HFR, he was talking about how crazy it's been to go back and forth between Riverdale because he's a recurring character on Riverdale as well.
Oh, okay.
He's having to
Well,
go
now I
back
have
and
to watch
forth.
Riverdale.
Oh my god, you have not seen Riverdale?
No.
Oh, don't even get me started on Riverdale. That's my show. That is once you get past. All I'll say is if you give Riverdale a try, and there are two former. Well, I mean, there's one is currently on the show. Lachlan Monroe is also on the show. Who he's a very well loved one in Hallmark circles, but also he was on One Calls the Heart. He was the movie director that came through.
Oh.
Yeah, so he is on the show, and
why do I see a Riverdale podcast in our future?
oh my goodness! Oh, yeah. Depending on how things fell, the writers have to make adjustments.
Yeah,
and so maybe with that many people being gone, it made it kind of tough. You had 3 characters that were probably busy elsewhere, and it was either postpone shooting, which it's a good thing they didn't do that because later on towards the end of the season they had to postpone shooting for 10 days because one of the main characters was sick.
Yeah. See, that's what's
And
so great about you,
yeah.
Ruth, is that you bring out that practical side of things. That's really good. Well, let's talk about the last storyline that we had. So we have Rosemary at the dress shop, and I thought, oh, was that going to be dropped?
Yeah.
Because I would think that Elizabeth would be in there designing her dress. So I was surprised to see it back. And so Rosemary has designed this dress, this blue dress. And there's this woman who is evidently like the poorest person in the whole world. She's so poor, loves this dress, and she keeps looking at the dress. And what did you think about this plotline, Amber?
Well, Rosemary Pascal can just bring such life to any plot line. Because, I mean, seriously, when you break this down, this plot line does nothing to the arcing storyline. It didn't affect any of the other storylines that were happening in the episode. It was literally just like a toss-away plot line. But it was fun because of the way Pascal, Rosemary, was able to pull it off. And that's the thing about the Rosemary character is that she always is able to, she internalizes growth from no matter what she does. And you can just like see everything that happens in forming her character. Like, so at this point you could see her love of fashion. It started out with her just being like, yay, I'm so great at designing dresses. And you could see it change from being, I want someone to wear my dress, to being, I want this woman to have a lovely dress.
Yeah.
Which is what really made the storyline interesting. And, you know, it made us as the audience invested in wanting Wilma to get this beautiful dress.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Very well said. Yeah. She, you know, takes something that's kind of selfish. You know, a lot of times that Rosemary starts kind of selfish, and then she learns and she grows, and that's what makes her interesting. And so she decides to start to give this woman the pattern for the dress, and then it becomes this whole like new business that they're going to do. So they're going to sell the patterns, and then the women can make their own dress, which was a pretty creative solution, I think, to this problem.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of this, Ruth?
Oh yeah, this was probably by far my favorite storyline in the episode. But that's, well, of course, I mean, I love Rosemary, so Rosemary and Lee. It's like that's always the thing, and it was, And it was cute that she involved Lee. I mean, that was, and he was so Lee when he's, just giving the cards like, oh yeah, take care of it or whatever it was that he said, or I mean, but it was so neat. And as you guys were talking about Rosemary, she is the character that has grown so exponentially in the series, and she continues to grow. And I think that's why people make such a connection with her, because she is continuing to do she is growing so much, because you think of where she was in season 1 when mostly everybody hated her,
right?
And then growing into this character that now everybody loves, and and she it was neat to see that she had a heart, and you knew she did. I mean, you've been seeing little snippets. I mean, however, whether it's just really good writers. I mean, somehow I think it's a good collaboration, because you have the writers and you have Rosemary, and then of course Lee. You have them really connecting with the material, and just bringing like you guys were saying, they can really do a lot with just this very simple storyline
she's like a problem solver. She she just won't, like, other people are like, just let it go, and she's like, no, I can't, I gotta solve it, I gotta figure it out, which I like. You can relate to.
And the way Rosemary, because Rosemary does always solve things, and if you guys pay attention, Rosemary's always right. Thing. But the way that she's always right is she goes and actually finds people who have the skills and the talents to make the things happen. So like in this situation, she didn't just recognize like, oh, I made this great dress, I need to convince the husband to let her buy it. She realized Mrs. Lawson has this great talent. She can do this, so we can work it out this way.
Well, I mean, she's not perfect in the sense that like everything that she does is right, because like it was probably the wrong thing to do to sell the woman the dress, but she's perfect in the sense that she figures it out. She she's a problem solver, and I think that we can all kind of relate to that. That she might not make the first choice right or the second choice, but she's going to figure it out, and it's going to be okay in the end. Look at this newspaper, and we find out, oh my gosh, the Mounties encounter resistance in Northern Territories. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then, of course, they, like you said, Ruth, they tell us, oh, Jack's coming back. So
I know.
That was weird. That was very weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I think it's kind of weird. Nothing against Erin Krakow, but I don't know why they let her tell that oh, the wedding's happening. Why? Why say anything?
Yeah.
Just let the Hardys find it out. I mean, you had the inkling that, okay, it's going to happen this season. I mean, you kind of knew that was going to happen, but I think in some ways that particular spoiler that they allowed her to say, in so many ways, kind of makes it almost anticlimactic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think I even saw Erin Krakow tweet out, like, thanks for ruining the cliffhanger, guys, like marketing years or whatever. I think I remember one of them tweeted something like that. So yeah, it was weird. So there was some kind of miscommunication between marketing and the showrunner. So Amber, have at it. Let's talk about this newspaper.
Okay, so first of all, like you guys said, like Jack's in trouble. Forget it. And then also, the newspaper says, August 10th, 1915. And my face turned to flames, and I ripped all of the furniture out of my house. And no, I'm exaggerating, obviously. But I was so mad, because if it is taking place August 10th, 1915, that means Canada has been involved in World War I for over a year at this point. And I am furious that they are just ignoring this huge part of history that was a big deal in Canada. They're trying to make me believe that the people of Hope Valley care more about this Mountie fighting than the Great War. It's the Great War.
Yeah.
And then it just spiraled out of control to being like, if they have made us so far into the future of When Calls the Heart that we're in 1915, why did they send Jack off to this lame Mountie fight when he could have been off to the war, which would have been a more reasonable reason for him to leave Elizabeth and would have been real interesting, and we could have had all of that interesting stuff that happens with the war and the way that, you know, nationalism is inspired during World War I and all that stuff. And I'm just furious that they dropped it. And the only way I can reconcile it is that this must be taking place in an alternate universe where World War I hasn't happened, because it's insane to me that they did not include this.
Yeah, because there's so much drama that you could have used. Like, they could be like, you could have Elizabeth being in charge of like making bandages, you know, for the troops, or I don't know, whatever. Like, you could have so many plot lines that could come off of the war. And so, yeah, I don't understand this choice. It's very weird.
Ruth, what do you got?
And that one, I know people have asked for, well, as long as I've been interviewing people, I know they've been asked, how are they going to handle World War I? Well, I guess
they're just going to ignore it.
and I guess the only reason they're doing that is, in my opinion, would probably be that I guess they have so many plot lines going on already. I think if they tried to add that in, it would probably, I mean, I can see how it would work, but there would be a lot of people who they want to come and watch a show where the wars like that don't happen, and you don't have, I mean, I'm not saying it's right necessarily, but I do remember interviewing an actor that he actually played a bad guy. He actually played a bad guy. He played the bad Mountie.
Okay.
In, I think it was like season 1 or something. In fact, he said that he wanted to come back and set Hope Valley on fire. That's what he really wanted to do. His character, he said, I'd really like to come back if they'll bring me back and I could set Hope Valley on fire. I was like, okay.
That's funny.
It was great. But he said that what you have to remember about When Calls the Heart is that this is not historically accurate. This is like what you would see on a postcard. Think of a Hallmark postcard, what you want to have seen on that postcard. You don't want war. You don't want all these, all the really serious bad things that are happening, because most people that come to watch the show are trying to somewhat escape all the bad things.
Kind of boring, like, because I don't know, the postcard version isn't that interesting to me. But I feel like there's not that big a difference between Jack going off and fighting some Mountie thing versus going off to war. Like, I don't know, it's one thing to like have bad hairstyles, but to ignore an entire worldwide conflict is. I know. But you know, some people probably say we're nitpicking, but anyway, it was worth at least bringing up. And who knows, maybe they'll like mention it in passing or something like that, and we'll get something about it. But anyway, so that was it, and. So that was the episode. I think we pretty much covered everything. Week on the podcast, you want to check out, I have an interview with Andrea Brooks that's going to post on Monday, and so you want to check that out. And then also we have on our normal episode, we were going to be talking about some of our favorite Hallmark movies, because it's kind of an off week, so we're just going to be picking 4 and talking about them. And we just did a episode on Hallmark Movies Now, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And so thanks so much for joining us, Ruth. We always really appreciate it.
Oh, hey, I'm happy to. Well, and speaking of that Hallmark Movies Now podcast, I have not seen it yet because I saw you post it today. But I figure, hey, if people are looking for movies, if they're really needing those Hallmark movies,
that's true.
Actually, we use Hallmark movies now. That's become my mom is addicted to Hallmark movies now. She is definitely. It's like she watches one right after the other, and she's always going through it, and so that's a way to fill it up. If you miss those Hallmark movies, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So.
That's a very good point. Check out the podcast, and then
that's right.
And then
check out the app.
That's right. That's right.
So, Ruth, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, which is mydevotionalthoughts.net, and you can find me on social media on Twitter and Instagram. It's RuthHill74, and on Facebook, you can find, if you look up My Devotional Thoughts, you'll find my Facebook page. And I am on there personally too. I don't mind if people look me up. I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. I'm easy to find. Just look for the person that continues to post about Hallmark over and over and over and retweet everything that if you want to know what Hallmark tweeted out, I'm retweeting it all. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So Amber, where can people find you?
As always, people can find me. I'm at Amber Brainwaves on Twitter, and that's it.
Awesome. Great. And you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on social media and at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and YouTube. Check it out. I do family movie night every Sunday where I give a family-friendly movie recommendation. Well, let us know in the comment section and on Twitter what you think of this episode and what we had to say about it. Please give us your feedback. We'd love it. And thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.